welcome to Paranormal Pals for another week, guys. How's everyone's week been?
Very tired, quite hectic.
Really great. Very busy as usual, but awesome.
That's how we like it.
Absolutely.
So, what are we talking about this week, people?
We're on to Paranormal Investigating 101, Part 2.
Part 2. Yeah, this could go into a few parts, right? So we'll get into that very shortly. But coming up first, I got some paranormal news for you. Dun, dun, dun. Look at that. I haven't sussed the music yet, but we got that. So what's been happening? I've got a couple of follow-ups from last week. So if you weren't with us last week, you may not have heard, but Aaron Goodwin from Ghost Adventures, as we reported, his wife, Victoria Goodwin, has been accused of plotting his murder after conversing with a Florida prison inmate, Grant O'Mato, via a mobile telephone. So O'Mato was a former nurse who killed his father, his mother, and his brother in a twisted plot so he could spend time, unlimited time, with a webcam girl. And he had been conversing with Victoria for quite some time, apparently. So the texts date back to October 2024. That was when it started, where Victoria actually initiated the contact with the inmate O'Mato. And what led to the discovery of the texts and the unveiling of the plot to murder him was prison guards confiscating a contraband mobile phone off the inmate. She's actually been charged with solicitation to commit murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. She's said to have provided O'Mato with Aaron's filming schedule because the murder was allegedly meant to take place on location, Ghost Adventures filming. And while Goodwin was initially reported to be blindsided by the murder plot, we can now confirm that on March 12th, he filed divorce papers, which was 1 week after the allegation broke. So no surprises there, right? Victoria is currently locked up in a Nevada jail, which is where they live, on $100,000 bail. And if that's not enough for you, Mr. Goodwin has just been caught out deliberately faking evidence on the Ghost Adventures hit show.
No.
Yeah, I know,
Never.
right? No one would believe it. A TikToker. Now, I only stumbled across this today, but a TikToker has clearly shown a frame-by-frame blow of Aaron removing a trigger object from its spot and throwing it towards Zach. Now, dodgy camera angles and post-production lighting changes have clearly been shown on top of the deliberate fakery, obviously in the hope of masking it all, but an eagle-eye fan has caught it out. So if you want to see this being shown frame by frame, and it's very clear to see, go and visit Beardo Gets Scared on YouTube, and you can see it all right there with the breakdown. The TikToker gives a breakdown, and so does Beardo as well. And
How do you spell Beardo?
B-E-A-R-D-O. Beardo Gets Scared. Yep. So it's not like most of us were not aware of this in the first place, right? But being actually slammed and caught out on camera during the actual filming as a whole. And I actually saw this episode and I thought there was something very odd about it, but I couldn't quite work it out. Well, this lady, she's gone frame by frame and she's nailed it all right. So check it out. Beardo Gets Scared on YouTube. Have a good look. Now, Ouija Brothers update. So finally, the poor guys, after many, many messages to Google and to YouTube, the Ouija Brothers have got their incredibly popular YouTube channel back under their control. You may remember last week that we reported on the fact that it had been hacked by a Bitcoin hacker. Well, it's safe to say the lads are back in control of the channel and the 8 years worth of videos they had on it. So I don't know about you ladies, but I'm pretty sure we can all say that we're really pleased for Steve and Griff because apparently they're really nice guys. So good on them. And there's some other news here too, and I might be a little bit late to the party on this one, but I don't know if anyone's heard of Amy's Crypt. It's a YouTube channel.
Yes. I know what you're going to say. It's,
Yeah.
Really?
So Australian YouTube creator Amy Stripp has been out and about making some very large purchases. 3 weeks ago, her and her husband Jared purchased the notoriously haunted The Cage in Ossett in England, and it's often reported as the UK's equivalent of the Amityville Horror House. So The Cage is actually a village prison, or was part of the house, was a village prison where those accused of witchcraft were said to have been held in the earliest part of the house, which is the part where it is called dates back to the 1700s. Now, that's pretty young in years in British terms, but for us, it's pretty old. So for the foreseeable future, we're going to be concentrating on preserving the house, ridding it of the damp and rot, as well as making it generally livable, because apparently it's not at the moment. Long term, they're going to look at using it as a permanent place and base for their experimentation and testing out then paranormal experimentation and testing out the new equipment that they're developing. So a lot longer term, they're going to be looking at opening up the house for others to investigate. So future content on this channel is going to be a series focusing on them investigating at the cage and doing deep dives and long-term investigations instead of one-nighters at locations here and there. So let's see where this goes within the next couple of years, eh?
I'm so jealous. I mean, that would just be amazing, wouldn't it?
Right, I know, right?
So many stories about that place, and to be able to investigate long term is, let's hope they find something. Let's hope that they find
Well, it's
something.
going to be interesting to see what comes of it. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on their channel. They say it's not going to happen anytime soon. They've got a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah.
So, and they've even scaled back doing their lives instead of going up on YouTube weekly. They're doing it fortnightly just because they've got this other project and they've got to get into it. So, yeah, good luck to them, and we'll be keeping an eye on them and seeing how they're going.
Absolutely.
And that is the paranormal news. All done, dusted.
Thank you. Well done. It was really, really interesting this week.
Yeah. So let's talk about Paranormal 101 investigating, the basics. So last week we did part 1. This is going to be part 2. And then part 3, we're actually going to step you through. We've just been discussing it. We're going to step you through actually doing an investigation, what you should be doing prior to the investigation, what you should be doing when you get there, what you should be doing afterwards. But in this part 2, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk to you about little snippets of what you should be careful of when you're investigating, things you should do, things you shouldn't do. And I'm just going to pull out some topics and I'm going to let the girls go with them. So, I don't know what you want to start with, Barb, really, but let's start with basic equipment. What should you take? What should you actually take?
Most investigators, everyone is very different with what they want to achieve during their investigation. I love trying to find EVPs and sound anomalies. So I would not go to any investigation without a couple of good recorders. Now I'm talking good recorders, not, a $90 digital note maker. That, or even your phone. I mean, that will record, but if you actually capture something, it's not going to be a lot of help. If you use a good recorder, you're going to get rid of a lot of the noise, a lot of the hisses and the hums that you hear with the cheaper recorders. And the more expensive recorders are well worth it because you can actually get WAV recordings, which are of they're much bigger, they're much clearer, and they're way easier to listen to and to work with. So my first thing would be my recorder. Of course, I would never go without a camera and a video recorder. They would be my absolute basics. I wouldn't turn up without any of those. The rest of it, hey, a pen and paper is always really handy, but they would be the main items. I've got a lot of equipment, but just for a basic investigation, if I was a new investigator and just learn how to use those properly, learn how to use those effectively, on an investigation, get really familiar with using them in the pitch black. And yeah, basically they're the basics in my mind of what you would actually need and what you should start with.
Cool. Thanks, Barb. Tash.
Mine would be similar, but I'd add to that a torch, because 99.999% of your and a headlamp, a torch and a headlamp,
Yeah.
so that you can find things in the dark. Because even though you think you packed something, you go looking for it, you can't find it, especially in the dark. Yeah,
That's very true. That's very true.
So
Yeah.
I'll probably add a torch to that, and also like if you can afford to buy a good recorder, like a good video recorder with a full spectrum light, that will help you as well, especially in the dark. So you can see yourself and everybody else, or if you're just investigating by yourself, you can see yourself, so you can then debunk any accidental coughs and other things that happen when you investigate.
Yep, I have to agree with pretty much all of that. I think really if you're going out first, the main thing that you need to have is you need to have a torch for sure. And as Tash said, a headlamp torch is great because it leaves these two things free, which you have never got enough hands when you're investigating. I'll tell you that for nothing. And wear clothes that's got pockets, so you can stuff things into pockets like extra batteries, so you don't have to keep running back to where your suitcases to get them. But yeah, I would definitely say a torch and headlamp if you can. Camera, video camera, if you can afford to go out and get one. A lot of people use their phone. Again, if you catch something, some of the phones, video cameras, though, I have to say now, and photos are so good compared to what they were like. So if you've got a really brand new phone and it's got a damn good camera on it, then by all means use that and see how you go with it. For me, the thing that I really like to take is I like to take my meter, and the reason why I like to take my meter, and I don't go anywhere without my meter, is because of its ambient temperature probe that it has. So it takes the atmospheric temperature. I also like to have a temp gun with me too, because I've had
Tracy, we said basic. We said basic.
That is basic to me. That is basic to me.
All right, okay.
So, I mean, if you've got something and you've got an import that happens or something gets moved, then at least if you've got a temperature gun, you can take the reading of that, and you've got an ambient thermometer with your Mel. So I like to have my thermometers with me as well as all the other bits and pieces. The other thing I really like to have with me too, although I haven't used it very often, is a tape measure.
Okay.
I've used it once, and that was to measure out the distance between something. But yeah, I like to have a tape measure with me as well. Just I shove it in my suitcase, so I've got it if I need it. But you don't need it basic, but that's just that's the minimums that I like to go with.
Since Tracy's taken half her kit,
I know. It's like
I'm just going to pull out my pocket synchrotron and find the God particle for you. Wow.
Actually, just the reason why equipment is heavy, it's bulky, it's a pain to carry around. Often it's dark. Until you're really familiar with it, just take the minimum, okay? We'll let Tracy have her now.
I've got to have my one suitcase with my flipping bits in it, all right?
No. I'm talking when you start, just a little back. But something that is actually quite handy too, and probably something that a lot of people would have at home, is a compass. A compass is just, it can be very useful. It actually, if you feel like there's something around, or you've had something occur, you put your compass down, you can use your torch to take photos or video. And sometimes you'll actually get activity on your compass, believe it or not.
Yeah, that is a good point, and I don't know where mine is anymore, but that used to always be in the suitcase.
I do have. I have one that I usually have, but I wouldn't list it as my basic. But if you've got one at home, why not take it? It doesn't take up much room.
Yeah, I just have one thing on the compass. If there's magnetic forces or the Earth is stronger in a particular direction, your compass is useless. It will change the poles.
Yeah, there is a particular place
That's just a caveat.
We're looking at investigating where it has very odd things happening like that. A compass doesn't work, your mobile phone doesn't work there, radios don't work there, nothing works in this particular one spot. But you can
sounds like that anomaly in Mexico.
Yeah, well, it does actually. But you can walk sort of like 3 meters either side, and everything's fine. But this one little spot, there's something very odd going on in this one little spot, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, we can all let you know about that when we all get out there and have a bit of a recce with it.
And that's when your well meter would be very handy too.
Bring a geologist on your paranormal investigation.
Yeah,
so they'll be able to tell you.
Pack a geologist.
Yeah, pack a geologist. Tracy's got a van like the Wraith Chasers. So.
I know.
I do not.
Full of the stuff, and including people.
The other saying about a torch, it is really important. I mean, Tracy and I were on an investigation recently, and I decided last minute to run back into this dark room. Actually to open an outside door, unlock an outside door, because there were homeless people living in this building who had been living in the building. The owner knew about it and was okay with them being in it. Of course, we locked them out. And then I felt really mean as we were packing up to go, and I thought, I can't leave them outside for the night or for how long it'll be before someone else comes in. So I actually ran back, which I shouldn't have been doing anyway, to unlock this door for them. And because I didn't have a torch, I managed to trip up and completely fall face first onto the hard floor. Torch. I don't even know why I didn't say that. Very important.
But it is, and which brings me to another point that's important. Don't ever let an investigator go anywhere on their own. End of story. Never,
I was only going across the room.
I don't care. We weren't even in the building at the time. So I'm loading stuff in the car, and I'm like, "Where's Barbara?" And I'm told, "Oh, she's run back inside for something." And Barbara's taking a little while, and I'm like, "Do you think you should go and see if she's okay?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I probably should." So off he trots. And then he comes back and Barbara's limping. So don't always go to what we call 2 up. So that's 2 people. Like if we go to the toilet, I'm like, can someone come to the toilet with me, please? It's not only for safety, and I'm a big health and safety person as part of my role during the week, but it's also because if anything occurs, there is nobody to validate your claim. Yeah. You are not taking a video camera when you're going for a tinkle, are you? You're not taking your camera when you're going for a tinkle. So having someone just standing out the door yakking to you, and I mean, we've had this before. We had it at Larnac, Barbara, remember?
Yeah.
Where something occurred and we heard all the noise and the swearing, and the person coming flying down the stairs, but no one was with her to corroborate what had occurred. So I
was close, but I wasn't with her.
I heard it as well. I heard the bang, and I heard the language that was uttered afterwards, and then she came flying down the stairs, but no one saw it. So always go 2 up. It's a safety thing, and it's a corroborating tool, if you like.
Second safety thing that was also brought up by Barbara, investigators should not be running anywhere. Nobody should be running. You shouldn't be running to or from something. If you're running away, then you're not an investigator.
We had finished. Okay, I knew the others were downstairs, and so I just ran across the room to unlock the door for the homeless people.
which is true. We had completely finished investigating, but still, I think that lesson has well and truly been learned on 2 occasions, and it was always our rule, and it's always been our rule since 15 years ago. It was always our rule, and it gets broken, but now that those instances where it's been broken, then now it has shown itself to be even more important than ever before that we follow that particular protocol.
Rule number 3, it's not really safe letting random homeless people in because you don't know who they are or if they...
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't anywhere near. We knew that they were sleeping elsewhere because we'd
spoken to them.
We'd left one of the doors open downstairs for them to sleep. Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us, and you know what? That kind of nicely segues into the importance of not relying on one piece of equipment. Who wants to start with this one? Correlations. Anybody?
I'll start. I'm happy to start. Yeah, you say you've got one piece of equipment and it's telling you that you have high EMF. Are you going to just believe that? Are you going to just think, say high EMF or whatever? Or are you actually going to check that out? It's a really good idea. I mean, equipment malfunctions, it may be the fact that you have a phone in your pocket and that is affecting your equipment. So you need to be very, very careful not to have anything that's going to affect your equipment, but so that you do have that you place your equipment really carefully so that A, nothing's being affected, and B, if anything happens, you have other equipment that will back up those readings that you're receiving.
You'll quite often get one piece of equipment blipping out and everyone's losing their mind over it. Well, not when we investigate. Sorry, but I'm meaning on these TV programs.
Yeah.
And it's only one piece of equipment that's blipping out. There's nothing else happening on any of the other equipments that are nearby. So we had an instance where we got really, really high EMF and it was actually moving. And this was actually at the stables, Barbara. And somebody said, it's moving. It's actually moving around. So they had a different EMF meter than I did. So I went and got the Mel to see if I could track it with the Mel at the same time. And yes, I could track it with the Mel at the same time. And then somebody else, I think you came with a third one towards the tail end of it when it completely kind of just disappeared. But it was actually in the corner of the room and then it moved and it was standing to the side wherever it was. But it was an actually moving piece of EMF that what it was, we still didn't ascertain, but we did get other equipment to make sure that first meter that said, hey, there's EMF here, that a second meter backed it up and then a third meter backed it up again. So
something that is really good to do as well is to have a number of pieces of equipment, which basically, say 2 or 3 eddies, if team members all have eddies, and then put them down the hallway at 5 meter intervals or 10 meter intervals, and see if you can track, are the lights all going, and then they stop, and then the next set of lights go, and they stop, and then the next set go. Is a really good idea if you have that equipment, if you have enough of that equipment to do that sort of thing.
I saw, just interestingly enough, I saw a very old TV program, Ghost Lab, that I used to watch way, way, way back in the day.
I used to like that, yeah.
I used to really enjoy Ghost Lab. And I found that they did exactly that on one episode. And I was so jealous. They had something like 10 EMF data loggers.
Oh, my gosh, no.
And they lined them up at intervals down the hallway. And I was just so jealous that they had 10 of them to be able to do that. But hello, TV program versus person hobbyist, but different.
Yeah.
But you got anything you want to add to that, Tash?
Yeah, so with regards to if you want to measure some stuff, if you can't afford an EI, you can get strips that pick up EMF as well. You can get them and they've got lights every, foot or so. So you can actually see if the EMF travels down. It's basically a long
I've seen
string of
it.
lights.
Yes.
And it picks up EMF. So the higher the EMF, the different colour the LEDs are, and it's pretty basic. But
Anne and Renata have one.
yes, they
Don't
do.
The lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do they call them? Oh God, I can't remember. I remember
remember.
when they first came out, and I'm like, oh, nice
It
idea.
would be really handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do a Google.
Do you know what? The other thing that I have seen used, and don't scoff, is these little dome lights that were bought for $10 at Bunnings with suction caps on them, and I've seen people pop them down on lino for the same reason, to see if they can follow something, and light up along the way. And I've
So
seen it
what
happen
lights?
once.
Is it vibrations or is it EMF or is it
EMF.
Movement.
It's
This
movement.
is movement. Yeah, this is just
Okay.
movement,
Yeah.
and the light comes on. It's just a light, so
Yeah.
you've got to have a video camera trained on it or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be in the room watching it, which who wants to be sitting there watching to see if the lights go off?
Yeah. Exactly.
But let's just talking about putting things down a hallway. Let's make sure people don't put things down a hallway. For instance, where investigators are going to be traversing constantly,
Yes.
like heading to the toilet or heading to where a communication space is or something like that, because you're constantly going to be getting things beeping and chiming and lights flashing and people going, what's that? What's that? And it's nothing. It's just Tracy going to the toilet, So just be very mindful. I guess that brings us to the subject of setting up equipment, and just be very mindful where you're setting the equipment up.
Yeah, exactly.
The particular equipment I was talking about is called a tripwire EMF.
That's a tripwire EMF.
But you don't try and trip the ghosts up with it. It's basically a long cable you can stretch out. Meters.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think
changes of EMF.
I think it's got there's two different lengths. One's 1.2 meters and the other's 2.5 meters. I could be wrong, something like that.
Ooh, I want.
I knew you would, but you can buy two different lengths. Yeah. And they have been used before, and they have captured. I have seen people capturing these little lights. They're so lighting up along the line.
Yeah.
And they're different colours.
And they don't bing or beep or anything. They're just lights.
No, they're just lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else did we want to talk about? I think we are going to do a data analysis, evidence and review podcast about that.
It's a huge subject. Yeah.
It is a huge subject, but I think what we do need to talk about is if you catch something, what do you do? So what you do is straight away, you try and replicate it. If you know that you've caught it right there and then, you try to physically replicate the same thing occurring again. Okay? So that reminds me of an instance, and I'm saying if you catch it right then. How many of us actually do that? No, we go home and we find it 2 or 3 weeks down the track.
If you've seen a shadow move, if you're sitting if you've seen a shadow move, or
if you've seen something like that, But if you or do what Tash said not to do. Run.
No, because you don't run.
No, you run to it with a cameraman. That's what you do.
Exactly.
What I'm talking about is
no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't run towards it with a camera. You would have a look. You would get your camera and you would be taking video, but you're not going to go towards it because you want to see it again.
You're not even really going to probably see it a second time, to be quite honest. Let's face it.
But you want to try and see it again. So you're trying to replicate it.
I'm talking about more replicating stuff that you capture on film or you capture on video. So you're capturing it on still or you're capturing on video. And you don't normally find that when you're there at the location. You find that 2 or 3 weeks down the track after you've gone through all the footage.
Yeah.
So it's important to go back to the location if you have found something and try and replicate what you have found on the camera to see if you can do so. there's a particular location that I love to investigate, and haven't been there for a few years now. But we caught something on a still photograph, and that was a massive black mass, and it looked like somebody sitting in a cloak. You could see shoulders and everything, just leaning on a table, and it was as clear as mustard. And so to replicate that, we went back, we spoke to the owners, and we went back at exactly the same time. It was the same moon phase. Everything was exactly the same for lighting purposes. We had the people stand in exactly the same positions, because there was photos of them standing in those positions just before this photo was taken. So we had them in exactly the same position. So there was one person sitting down in a chair, and they had their arm up along the back of the chair. So we got them to do that. So we shoved everyone back into the same positions and took a heap of photos again, and there was nothing. So it's about replicating it, but doing it in such a way that you're taking into consideration, I guess, the environmental circumstances that were around the first time you caught that or you captured that, to see if you can then replicate it. If it's what Barbara's talking about, which is a shadow that you've seen with your own eyes, and you need to figure out, and you should already know this anyway, and this is something I'm really hot on, is where everyone was at the time. And this is stuff that we'll talk about in part 3 when we're talking about actually executing an investigation. I tend to be quite particular about it, because I like to know exactly where everybody is, so that if a shadow is seen, we can rule out completely right from the get-go. We can eliminate other investigators because we all know where they are. But yeah, so replicating is a way to find out whether or not this is something that is mundane, i.e. it's normal, it's there's nothing spooky about it, it ain't anything from another dimension, it's not a spirit. We can replicate it, so therefore it's not anything paranormal. If you can't replicate it and you're trying to use the same and you're using the same environmental conditions in which it was captured, then you might have to put that in the I don't know basket. And that basket's very big.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it still would be like, well,
it's overflowing.
Probably not, but
it's probably good to point out that one, you'll probably 9 times out of 10 will not find anything when you investigate.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah, I totally agree with that. Yep. Actually, I'd say probably 9.5 times out of 10. In all honesty,
9.999.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the second part to that is that you should go back to same locations at different times.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not possible, but
yeah, if you can, definitely. I mean, you see so much at the moment on, and I guess this is a reflection of us being a or society having a McDonald's mentality. But you see so many people that are going back or going to places, should I say, not going back, but going to supposedly, allegedly haunted locations. They spend 4 hours in the place, 6 hours in the place, and they go, oh, that's not haunted. We got nothing. You know what?
Or even better, that's haunted. We found it. This place is haunted, and they've done one investigation in 4 hours.
The thing is, paranormal stuff does not run to your schedule. It doesn't have a time frame in the sense of every Thursday night at 9 o'clock, this is going to happen. 9.9999 times out of 10, it's not going to have a time frame. It's very intermittent, and it's also very unpredictable. So as Barbara said, who I don't know which one of you ladies brought it up, going back again and again and again to the same location, you have got far more chances of capturing something rather than going once for 6 hours. So if you go somewhere once for 8 hours, or you sleep overnight and you catch nothing, I mean, I think I can speak for all three of us here when I say none of us ever go anywhere and say that's haunted or that's not haunted. We go and say we didn't capture anything, but that doesn't mean it's not haunted. Or we go and say we got this stuff, but we can't explain what it is at the moment. We're still looking into it. You know, I mean, I've also heard the saying that there's if you can't, what was it? There's always an answer for something, and if you can't find it, then you're the problem. It's actually not that simple when you're dealing with the paranormal. There probably is an answer, but it's actually finding out what that answer is. There's a multitude of things that you have to go through to discover.
And it's not always evident. Like sometimes we never get the answer.
No.
And it just remains one of those mysteries. But you can't say, well, we couldn't find an answer for it, so therefore that's evidence that the place is haunted or that was a ghost that did it. It's just we don't have an answer for it at this stage. We can go back, we can keep working on it, but it's just fine to say you don't know.
And to be quite honest with you, the word evidence shouldn't even be used in this field, because when you look at the definition of the word evidence, we are never going to capture evidence in this field at this particular current, or we're not going to ever capture something that the rest of the world is going to determine as being evidence of the paranormal at this particular point in time. It's not going to happen. So I don't understand why that word is used so heavily. I prefer to use anomaly. We captured an anomaly, which means don't know what it was. We're looking into it. But by no stretch of the imagination are we saying it's paranormal. And we're certainly not saying it's evidence of the paranormal, because I don't believe that that is something that can happen in this field at this current time.
We don't know that. Never say never.
No, well, it hasn't happened in the last 100 years. I find it very difficult until we have more information at our fingertips about certain things. I find it very difficult to believe that someone's going to come up with evidence and everyone's going to say, okay, now that is evidence.
Well, people may have actually come up with evidence, but people haven't followed procedures properly. And as a result, they may be considered to be charlatans or frauds or fakes. People may have found, solid evidence. But in this day and age of fakery and tricksters, and I know with me, I mean, when I see something, especially on YouTube, or I'm like, you just don't know if they're having you on, if they're having everyone on. And unfortunately, some of these, YouTubers, or some of the clips on YouTube, because it would never be a YouTuber, because that's kind of their job, is to put up these videos of hauntings. But occasionally, someone who's only ever put up one video, and look at this, folks, this is really, really strange. It could actually be actual, real paranormal activity. But because we don't know them, we don't know anything about the way they were filming. We don't know where other people in the house were. We have no clue if they have pests or pets or demons or just what is going on. So unfortunately, in that case, I know myself, I default to it can't be paranormal, just because it hasn't proved it to me.
I think my point I was trying to make is the definition of the word evidence itself is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. That can't be proven at this particular point in time.
No, you're dead right.
Based on that alone,
that we know, because there could be some sneaky military experiments going on that have bigger budgets.
Oh, absolutely. But as a general rule, and that's why I don't think that word. I think people need to stop using that word, particularly in this field, because we can't prove that it's true or valid. We can't. There's just no way of doing that. So therefore, by definition, it's not evidence. No matter how you look at it, that's not what it is. It's an anomalous occurrence.
Okay, now The thing is that if you as the investigator know that you've followed the procedures, you know
It's
that
still not evidence. It's still not evidence by
to you,
definition. No, says
it's evidence.
the definition of evidence. It's not evidence.
Can
There
I be
can't
the devil
evidence.
advocate and then play the other card? It
You can
is
try,
evidence until it's proven it's not.
but you can't prove it either way. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say.
either or there, isn't it? Oh, it's not
Yeah, you
evidence
catch
can't.
until
22.
it's
So
proved
you
it
could
is
call it
Yeah.
evidence unless
Okay.
someone can disprove it.
So either
Right.
way there.
So then I'm coming back to the point that evidence should not be used in the word evidence should not be used in this field. End of
Potential.
story.
No, I
Potential.
disagree.
Exactly.
Allegedly.
But no
I
one says
disagree.
potential evidence.
No.
Well, I don't know how
Allegedly.
you can based on the definition, but
Allegedly.
allegedly evidence. Allegedly evidence.
Like I
Allegedly
said,
evidence.
if you know it was you and you got that evidence, how you got it, that there is no doubt in your mind that you followed the procedures, you followed the protocols, you've done the work, you've had the cameras watching every second of every camera, and you know perfectly well that it's like unexplainable. It very likely is evidence of the paranormal. No one else.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
Everyone else could be like, well, no, because I think that you didn't actually follow that procedure properly and someone snuck in, or I think you're mistaken because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have done this or that. But that's like, if you yourself know, then you know. If you know, you know.
Let's just agree to disagree on that point, because
Yeah,
I certainly don't agree with that at all.
But in
And
essence,
then-
I agree with you. I just think in that particular case, if you really feel that you have evidence and you know that there really is very little chance, well, no chance actually, then you can say, I have evidence.
Good luck with that.
Others might not
Because
agree with you, but-
again, that leads us into the next one, which is sharing what you think is evidence on social media.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this
Why
is
not?
no, it's about what to expect. There is a number of people who have done it in the past, and they get told that it's a spider crawling across their CCTV camera, or that they need to get the duster out, or that it's just moisture in the air, and they lose their shit because they know it's a ghost.
Don't lose your shit. It's
If-
instant.
Exactly. If you're going to put up stuff on the internet and claim it as being paranormal evidence, then you be prepared to have your evidence ripped to pieces by those on the internet. It's always going to
fair
happen.
enough.
Yep.
As investigators and as actual investigators, we need to actually have that peer review.
That's
you know?
exactly what we need. So
Yeah.
the point is, if you're going to do that, don't put it up on social media. You can email people, and I've got a lady at the moment that's emailing us video and photographic still shots of what she believes, what she's captured as paranormal activity. But don't, if you put it up on social media, you need to be prepared for what is going to come your way after that point. And there's no point in getting upset and throwing the toys out of your cot.
Don't
because
take it personally.
yeah, that is what real investigators do. They take something and then they look at it, they analyze it, they might spend weeks analyzing it, they might run it through computer programs, they look at XF data, there's all sorts of things that are done. And then for you to be told, well, I'm sorry, but it's actually not anything other than this.
There's not normally a I'm sorry attached to it, to be honest.
Well, actually,
On social media.
I do. I always say I'm sorry. It's such and such.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you don't agree with me on that, but that is the reality. And if you want to live in your little cotton bubble and believe that it is Auntie May coming to see you, then that's cool. But then don't ask me to waste my time on analysing it when I tell you what it is.
Yeah, Yeah.
I don't need to analyze it. I can see right now what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
So you just, and the thing is that there's people out there that have more experience than you. Listen to what they're telling you. The camera manufacturers know all about orbs, and they know why they're caused and why they're caused mainly on digital camera. Listen to what the people who are making this equipment are telling you.
Yeah.
And listen to these people who have been investigating the paranormal. Ask for advice, ask for opinions, and then you get upset when you get them from people who do this and have been doing it for a number of years. So you just need to be mindful of that if you're putting stuff out on the net. You might hear something you don't want to hear.
Yeah. And use it as a learning tool. Sorry, Tasha. Use it as a learning tool. Don't get all out of joint, your nose all out of joint about it. Take it on board. Have a good think about it. Understand they might be wrong. Like, no one knows everything. There's no experts.
No.
Some people are more experienced than others. Some people have been in the field longer, but sometimes when you've been in the field a very long time, your mindset becomes so narrow that even people who've been in the field for a very long time need to be reminded to actually expand their mind and to think about what they're being told. And a new investigator, an old investigator, all investigators need to be open-minded enough to actually consider that what people are telling them might be correct.
The other thing with, and I think we say it on our website's being ripped apart at the moment, so I can't actually show it, but I think I say it on one of the pages that if you are not prepared to reevaluate your ideas or your beliefs on certain subjects constantly, then this field isn't for you. It's just not, because it's changing all the time. We're finding out new information, and what we thought 10 years ago isn't actually the fact of the matter now. Just thinking about EMFs affecting the brain and things like that. We'll talk about that when we get around to our EMF segment. But things change and new information comes to light. So as investigators, we have to keep up with the play with all that new information coming to light, and it changes our minds accordingly. And it might even completely change the way we execute an investigation.
Yeah. Just on that as well, it's like any subject. If you think you know everything about something, then
it's time to get out.
Yeah, I was going to say, hang your boots up.
Like, it's in any field. Like, if you think you know everything about everything, and you learn it from a book like 20 years ago, yeah, the whole point of like doing this stuff is to learn. So every time you go to an investigation, whether you go to the same site 20 times or 50 times, you're still learning about
and always go with a fresh mind too, to take in any new suggestions, thoughts. Think of different things to do. I just want to make the point about how investigators are learning. It wasn't that long ago that even paranormal investigators considered that orbs may have been the spirits of ghosts. Evidence of ghosts, and honestly, there are still a lot of people around like that, but it's taken a long time for people to actually understand what orbs are, and for it to basically enter mainstream paranormal, that they are not spirits. So, and that's how, as a field, we move forward.
We have to. Yeah, we have to. And the field really hasn't moved greatly forward in the last 50 years, to be quite honest. There's little bits and pieces here and there, but we've made no progress as such on, people go, oh yeah, we've made progress on equipment. No, we haven't. Because most of the equipment that's sold out there is not actually proven to do what it says that it's saying it's proven to do, if you know what I mean. So there's no evidence. Yeah, exactly. And
I agree.
there is there is something that we spoke about earlier tonight that I think really needs to be mentioned with investigating. And you know what? We're going to probably mention it again, Barbara and Tash, in part 3. But that's about location information.
Yeah, doing live things.
Yeah, you don't. There's certain things of etiquette, should we say, that need to be taken into consideration when you're investigating. And I think the first one is what the client, and whether that client be a commercial, a historical, or a residential client, what that client is prepared for you to do with the information that you are receiving through the mediums that you're using, i.e. voice recorders, video recorders, your phones, all the rest of it, and also the internet, your social presence, your social media presence. So, or your presence on the socials, should I say. So I think it's really important that we make a note that, or we quickly touch on the fact that, you need to sort this out with your client prior to even accessing the property. I always make sure we actually have a document that has been drawn up that the client has to sign, and it specifically states by the client what we can do with what bits. So she might say, or they might say, you can mention it on your socials, but I don't want my name mentioned and I don't want the address mentioned. She might say, I don't want pictures of the inside of the house or the outside of the house going up. A business might say the same because they don't want their business to be known as haunted. And you know what? If that's the case, don't put it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same.
Don't say.
Yeah. Don't take photos. If they say don't take photos of this, for what? Don't even need a reason. Just don't take photos. Put the camera away.
Yep.
It's about respect. It's about respect for the client, a respect for their home or business, and also our own self-respect as investigators, because if people do that sort of thing and put stuff online that they have been asked specifically not to, we all are tarred with the same brush. It means that if we then go to that particular site and ask to do a follow-up investigation, they're going to be, well, no, I've got a, I had a bad experience the last time. No one else is coming in. And that has happened.
It has happened. Yeah. And it has happened on more than one occasion. Has it happened?
Don't be that person that spoils it for the rest of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're bringing the field, you're bringing the whole field into disrepute by being that individual. I mean, we've done investigations and we have mentioned nothing on our socials. We've mentioned nothing on the website. And I think there was one time that we'd done an investigation and it just said residential investigation, no details will be forthcoming due to client privacy. And don't ask us where we've been because you're not going to get told.
Yeah.
We respect what the client wants, and that is what is going to get us in the door. And and it still happens, even in New Zealand, people get their foot in the door and they just are so excited and they cannot keep their mouths quiet that they splash it because they want to be the ones to be seen to be investigating there. They splash it across all the socials, and it can end up in people nearly losing their homes because they're rented properties. It could end up in people nearly being kicked out of their business abodes because the leasee doesn't want them to be having paranormal investigators in and doesn't want the building known for that. So there's all these sorts of things that you need to take into consideration. And if you don't, and you do it anyway, it says more about you than the field, but you do have an impact on the field by doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just the last thing we're going to touch on, and we're probably going to touch on this again at some point, I'm sure, and that is doing residential investigations. Now, what we mean by a residential investigation is going into someone's private home and doing an investigation. And actually don't believe new teams should be doing this at all. And I actually don't believe any team should be doing this unless they have mental health professionals that are qualified on their team. And doing a residential is not a case of, oh, great, we've got a residential, we're going to do it on Saturday night. There are interviews that go on over the phone. There are interviews that go on in person. There are interviews that go on over the internet. There are a number of interviews that happen before I walk into a residential. And in fact, I won't even do residentials now. I put the kibosh on it. I won't do them. But there are a lot of interviewing processes that I go through and a lot of questions that have to be answered by the people who want us in before I'm prepared to say, yes, I'm going to come in. There's a number of reasons for that. There's lots of fakers, frauds, and freaks out there. That's number one. So you're going into someone's private house. What do you even know about them, for goodness sake? This is what the interviews lead you to believe, whether or not there is a need for an investigation or not. Barbara, I think you've got a couple of examples, haven't you?
I sure do. I've done a lot of private investigations, but one that really sticks out in my mind is we were asked to do an investigation of an older house in a central Auckland suburb. And so we turned up to this investigation. I didn't organise this. I just was an investigator on it. We turned up to this investigation to find that the occupants of the house, it was a flat, and the occupants of the house were having a dinner party, and we were the entertainment. Like, they were going to eat their dinner. They said, oh, you get started. When we're finished dinner, we'll come and watch you and have a chat. And, we do private investigation, that we do all investigations for free. We had given up our night to do this investigation because, I was there because I thought that they needed help, and to discover that, no, we were just the entertainment. There's also another one that I can think of. We were asked to do an investigation at this flat, and when I asked them, what's been going on, they're like, oh, well, we've had lots of problems with the electrics. So I wasn't like, well, what does the electrician say has been happening? Oh, no, we haven't had an electrician in. We thought we'd get the paranormal team in first because it might be paranormal and we don't want to have to pay an electrician. Just crazy. You need lots of information before you go in because people are mad. Like, some people are ridiculous. Two very true stories about residential investigations.
Yeah, I think to be quite... sorry, Tash, go ahead.
So I can't really talk because the group I was in, supposedly members weren't supposed to do home investigations.
Oh, really?
Homes.
Okay.
But yeah, so never done one.
I've done a lot of them, and yeah, no more. I have said that I do not know how many times, and then someone rings me up and they're freaking out and I feel bad, and I do the interviews and they're freaking out and there's kids involved and I feel terrible. So I go along. I need to tell them, listen, just because I've haven't found anything, I don't think there's anything here. I think that maybe what you need to do is a bit of observation yourself and see if you can note anything. And this is what I get them all to do. Keep a diary, let me know what's been happening. But yeah, I won't, and I don't. And I have had a little bit of mental health, not help. So stop that before you even start. I was a little bit of mental health training, and I just won't do residentials anymore. I'll just leave it at that. And I think that's pretty much us done. Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, I'd say it is. So if you've joined us, thank you. And hopefully we haven't bored you too much. And we'll be doing part 3, where we're going to probably next month sometime, where we're going to actually talk you through what you should be doing, prep before, what you should be doing when you get there, setting up, what you should be doing when you leave, and what you do after, which is hours and hours of analysis and reviewing. But next week, we're going to have a live. And Barbara and I are going to be live, and we're going to be talking about Larnock Castle and the stables in Dunedin. Barbara investigated with me there last time, and I investigated there about 12 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So we'll have a chat and show you some pics and, yeah, some photos of us investigating and what we got up to, and tell you the history and the stories behind all the ghosts that supposedly, allegedly haunt.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Make
Yeah.
sure you come and watch, because it's a very cool place.
Yeah, so as per usual, like, comment, and smash that subscribe button, please. All right, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.